5 producers on one beat is diabolical. I just saw this tweet from TM88. I don't know if this has anything to do with some recent tweets by a certain rapper. TM88 wants to know, is rap the only genre that thinks having multiple producers on a beat is crazy? It kind of seems that way. I think I've heard similar sentiments expressed in the EDM community, but it seems like lately this hot take has been all over the place. You know, people criticizing hip hop beats for being produced by multiple people. Now, I've talked about this in the past. I think collaboration is a lot of fun. If you're in the room with 5 producers and you're all working on the same beats, sometimes one person's contribution may be seen as trivial, but it was just part of the energy. If there are 5 producers and they all kind of have similar skill sets, but one person is better at drums, one person is better at a bass line. For example, some people might look at the credits or look at the breakdown and say, you mean to tell me you needed another producer to make the bass line? Well, another producer made the drums. That's ridiculous. And the reality is producers are expected to do so much themselves. And when I say producers, I'm talking about the modern definition of the producer that came from hip hop culture, because beat makers were the ones who pretty much did everything out of necessity. They had to. But as hip hop was growing, other genres were just fine using multiple instrumentalists contributing to the same project. Michael Jackson, Billie Jean, for example. Now, granted, Michael Jackson did a lot. 2 producers, okay, no problem. But a bass player, a drummer, a guitar player, a Rhodes and synth player, so keys, and then 2 synth programmers. I don't know what a lyricon is, an emulator, and then the recording engineer. Doesn't say anything about the mix. Okay, fine, Michael Jackson. Let's talk about one of his contemporaries, Madonna. Let's talk about the Like a Virgin song. So there's the main producer. Obviously, there's Madonna. There's a guitarist, there's a bassist, there's a drummer, there's a synth player who also plays bass. So does that seem redundant? Because there's a bass player and then there's a bass synth player. There's a drum programmer. There's a saxophonist. There are multiple background vocalists. There's a mix engineer. There are multiple assistant engineers. There's a mastering engineer. Even the art and direction was handled by multiple people. But when we're talking about, a trap beat, and people say, oh, I can't believe it took 3 producers or 4 or 5 producers to make this trap beat. Well, the expectations have changed for producers these days. We have to do everything. So if there's a guitar sound in the beat, well, you should be responsible for that. We can't outsource, because otherwise we look like suckers. But a band can do it. Pop music can be produced by multiple people. It has to do with that damn title, producer, right? Because, and I think this is a better situation, but traditionally, if you played sax or you played bass on a pop record, you didn't get any equity in it. Nowadays, when beat makers sit in a room and collaborate, they're all splitting equity. For a person who likes getting 100% of everything, that's bad news. But for people who are comfortable with sharing with their collaborators, that's perfectly fine news. And I think it's good news because everybody is sharing equity, and it's actually a good thing. So no wonder it's so unpopular. But let's talk about the Moneyman tweet. I want to talk about that. I'm not saying TM88 was responding to this directly or indirectly. I have no idea, but I do want to talk about this. I brought this up with Dame. This is what he had to say about it. Moneyman recently made this statement about producers. So 5 producers on one beat is too much for him. I'm quite confident a lot of producers collaborate for his tracks, but I have to imagine that this is the direct result of some situation he had recently. I don't know, it was difficult to make the purchase logistically because there were 5 people involved.
Or maybe it was tough to clear something.
Yeah, but there shouldn't be clearance involved when there are 5 producers on a beat, I guess. I don't know why. You mean just like clearance in terms of someone has a part that they just didn't sign off on in time, or?
No, in terms of sync, like possibly. I don't know. Like the people these days just want things super easy, right? Like even with the music that we put into Laugh, like I'm going back and doing all the cue sheets so that because Tubi pays out performance royalties, so I have to have all the publishing information. And it is just a pain in the ass when there's more people on it. It just takes me hella long to fill out the cue sheets. But, can't somebody hold up a sync placement if you don't give them permission, right? And if there's 10
Oh, yeah, anyone can hold up anything. That's the risk. That's the biggest risk of just honestly being in the music business, because anyone can hold up anything, whether it's a lawyer being slow, whether it's someone who's a 5% owner in something being slow, whether it's sample clearance and 8 people need to clear it or 8 entities need to clear it and only one of the 8 say no. Well, it's not clear. So, and I think we've seen this before too with even 2 producers on a track where one of the 2 producers wanted extra or wanted a larger piece, a disproportionate split, something like that. Or maybe it was I think it was his manager, right? Wasn't that the Pink Dread situation? Something where like a manager wanted too much and that killed the whole deal.
I don't remember that situation, but you bring up another potential point. Like maybe, there's one producer that thinks that they made a more significant percentage of the beat and they want more publishing. And maybe Moneyman, again, I'm just riffing at this point. I don't know why he posted that, super vague. But maybe in order to quell any issues with the producers, it ate into his publishing, and he was just like, "Fuck it, give them all 20. I don't want any, just to get the song out."
Yeah. I mean, I can see that happening. We talked about that with sample clearance, how a lot of recording artists will be faced with what I see as an unfair prospect of losing 100% of everything. In the case of Kanye with Through the Wire, and he's just like, fuck it, drop it, and then he became a billionaire. So a lot of people, when I spoke on that, were like, well, it was a risk he took and he won in the end. And it's like, cool, but a lot of people take that risk and they do not win in the end. So it's one of those things where obviously in a situation where you're about to take a hit, you want to minimize that as much as possible. You don't just want to say, okay, cool, yeah, and everything will work out in the future, because a lot of times it doesn't. It's great to believe in yourself, but it's also great to protect yourself too. With Kanye, that's a different story because he's Kanye. But I can see how with Moneyman, this could have been a situation where he just didn't want to deal with it. But I think there are lessons here. What were you going to say, Dan?
I thought we were pulling up the Neptune thing, but to me, just the more people just allows for, I love collaboration. So if it takes 5 artists or producers to make something super dope, it is what it is. But, just the more opinions you have, it could slow down the process for a lot of things, all the things that we just talked about. I would love to know like why he said that, like what went on more recently that made him want to post that. But I could definitely see a number of situations where that could be an issue.
I guess I've luckily, which is crazy because I've had everything go wrong in the music industry. I don't think I've ever had that happen to me where because of a collaborator, something fell through. Oh no, what am I saying? Yeah, I did. You're the exact same thing you said. This was way back. I don't fuck with people like this anymore. Maybe that's what it is. Over time, I just stopped working with certain problematic folks, but it was a sync license. I had 2 sync deals. Shout out to Violators, shout out to All in One, shout out Chris Lighty, rest in peace. It was that far back. It was like 2009, 2010. I had 2 syncs lined up, 2 for Sprite. I think I've told this story before, and one of the groups I was in said yes. The other group said no, we don't want to take the deal because it's beverage exclusive for 2 years for that song. And what if Pepsi wants that same song sometime in the next 2 years?
I don't love it, but when artists like make up potential scenarios that will, because a lot of times they don't know that what they think might happen is such a small chance. Like there's probably not another beverage company that's going to come and want to put that song in the commercial or, and I think I've said this before, even when I was like initially negotiating with Hop about Funk Volume, he was like, well, what if Dr. Dre wants to pay me $200,000 for a beat? I'm like, bro, you got to stop making up these fairy tale imaginative like situations that we'll probably never find ourselves in order to negotiate what's on the table right now.
Yeah, because it's not like
Like,
he had hung out with Dre or like they were at the YMCA or anything together. And that's the thing with the sync deal. Well, you like to go to Y and play basketball. I went to the offices. I went all the way to New York to secure this sync, and I was only going to get a third of it. And that was going to be hundreds, not thousands. So that money would have paid for my trip. I did that shit. Pepsi wasn't texting you saying, hey, something might be coming in the next year or two. They just made that. It's entirely made up. So yeah, you're right. That is the problem of dealing with some weirdos, because the more people you work with, the higher probability that one of them is going to be a weirdo. So that's why you have to really develop discernment in the music business. I think, especially as a producer, you can't be collaborating with everybody. I collabed with someone recently and he did some weirdo shit, and I may or may not talk about it. I don't think it's that significant. But yeah, someone does something weird and it can potentially kill the deal. My only concern is, like you said, Dame, Moneyman's post is so vague, and there are plenty of producer teams that are working 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people at once, and it's all good. I don't think the number has to do with anything. I think if he wanted to talk about anything that was helpful to either rappers or producers, he could have shared the story that inspired that post and then spoken directly about whatever red flags he may have ignored working with this producer that caused him trouble. Because yeah, everyone in the comments takes the baton and runs with it and talking about, yeah, 5 producers, that's crazy. I don't even fuck with more than 2 producers on the same beat. And it's like, all right, man, whatever. You listen to bands. Bands are great. Bands split up for the same reasons that 2, 3, 4, 5 producers on a track causes issues. It just has to do with people. There's no numerical value that equates to a fucked up situation in the music business. So I just want specificity, because if he's going through some shit, he will not only help rappers, he will help producers and managers probably by telling that story.
The biggest point that came out of this segment for me, even though it wasn't directly related to the post, is that's why it's so important to learn the business, so that when you're negotiating with people, you're not pulling some random situation out of your ass that's never going to happen, that fucks up the negotiation and completely, just goes left. Yeah, it's tough negotiating in the entertainment industry typically, because people aren't on the same level of education. I wish everybody did have like a baseline level of education, so that you guys can at least start from a similar point.
And it's not the artist. It's not just the creative. Sometimes it is, but a lot of times it's management that doesn't know what they're doing, that has no business being in the music business, because the music business is unique. You have a lot of people who are like, I can manage. Oh yeah? Look, my first manager didn't know what the hell he was doing, but he was learning on his feet, and he was trying to get into the music business. I've seen managers mess opportunities up for their clients all the time by just being mad aggressive or demanding or just trying to keep their hands in the artist business. Like this one time a songwriter reached out and I was like, yeah, let's work on some stuff. I just want to send you demo. It was like a duo. I just want to send you beats. Let's see where it goes. Immediately the manager intervened. Okay, so now everything's going to go through me. All right, I don't want to, this isn't cool energy. I'm just trying to work with people and make music. It's not even a money thing. I'm confident we can work through stuff. As long as you guys aren't going to try to stab me in the back or request something unreasonable, I'm not going to request anything unreasonable, and I'm going to be flexible. If you say, okay, well, there are 2 of us and 1 of you, we want the majority share, we want 55% or 60%, I'm going to roll my eyes, but let's work through it. We can figure it out. It's not a big deal. You don't need to do all that hyper aggressive, I'm the manager, you go through me for everything shit, when we haven't even laid down a single note.